distinction, I mean, there's a difference between the pattern charge. The pattern is 3.10.13, and it is, as the court has right here, a person who is not the aggressor is not required to retreat before being justified in using force he reasonably believes to be necessary. And of course, the statute actually says, has no duty to retreat, this is the very last sentence, or last part, has no duty to retreat and has the right to stand his or her ground and use force as provided in said code sections, okay, which are self-defense, defensive habitation, including deadly force.
Can I back up? I'm planning to charge it the way that it is, and let me just tell you, it is under 310.13. 310.13 provides as authority 16.323.1, but it also goes through a number of cases, including most recently Reed versus State. But we've got 6 or 7 cases that this particular charge has been tailored with, and I'm comfortable that it's an accurate reflection of the law. I understand the statute's there. The charge itself cites the statute and the cases underneath it.
Okay.
And maybe just streamlining purposes here. The next one, 3.14.10, use of force in defense of property. I don't see any authority, any factual basis for that. We'd ask that that be removed.
Black light rejoining.
Well, Your Honor, the reason we ask for this is kind of the last part. The use of force that is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm in order to prevent a trespass is not justified unless the person using force reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. Burglary, theft, and trespass are not forcible felonies. So basically what the state is asking is that you inform the jury that you can't go killing people in order to prevent them from trespassing or committing burglary or theft, because this appears to be hey, he's a burglar, must have stolen that stuff off that boat back in November. We're justified in using lethal force at this point. So the state wishes for this charge to be given so that the jury's not under the misapprehension that burglary somehow allows lethal force.
Feel pretty sure that nobody thinks that there's such a thing like that, especially after the admonition. Ms. Dunikowski is the only person who would ever be arguing anything like, we thought he should be killed because he might have been a trespasser. This is not somebody coming onto that property and just shooting him dead like that. That description sounds like social media, not like what happened in this trial.
Yeah, the court doesn't intend to charge on use of force in defense of property.
Yes, Your Honor. Excessive force, 3.16.20. This is the pattern charge.
Why do I feel like this is the third time we've read this charge?
It's not. The reason you feel that way is because Mr. Goff brought up excessive force repeatedly during the resisting arrest part, which isn't part of that. So I think that's why you probably think you've heard it. But this is the first time excessive force is being used here.
Well, hold on. That gets back to the prior discussion, because how many different times are we getting charged about excessive? I mean, I want to charge once. I think some other people in the room don't want to charge at all. But to be charging it multiple times, the problem is we have specific rules of force that apply to the context of an arrest, and those supersede general rules that would otherwise apply in the justification charge. Justification covers all kinds of force cases. The resisting arrest and the right to make the arrest, the rules of force that apply are specific to this case. And that's what the jury should be charged with. There's no reason to be given this 316.20 charge at all.
Actually, there is, Judge, because what we've got excessive force relates specifically to self-defense. A defendant is not justified in using excessive force while acting in self-defense. So this relates specifically to self-defense, which is why it's right here. And if you decide that a defendant used more force than was reasonably necessary to defend against the alleged victim's threats or use of force, then the defendant's actions would not be justified. So Judge, that's of course the core of the state's case. You pulled a shotgun on an unarmed jogger. It's excessive force, even if we get there. Because, of course, we've got to overcome citizen's arrest, then we've got to overcome self-defense, then we've got to overcome, well, even if you think it was self-defense, it was excessive. The previous excessive force related specifically to making a citizen's arrest. So this relates to self-defense specifically, and we ask that you give it as the pattern.
If I may, Your Honor. What we have here is a situation that's comparable to what we used to call a sequential charge problem. The primary charge in the primary defense in this case is citizen arrest. Self-defense is a secondary defense. And justification in the rules of force allowed in a citizen arrest context take priority over the rules of force in the general justification charge. For example, if a jury finds that the McMichael defendants did not use excessive force in attempting to effectuate an arrest, then how could they be authorized to use that force under the citizen arrest, but not authorized to use that force under self-defense? That would make no sense. If you wouldn't even get to addressing the excessive use of force under justification, you wouldn't even get to self-defense until after the jury has considered whether the defendants have lawfully effectuated a citizen arrest. You wouldn't get there. And this is implying to the jury that there's two different standards for excessive force in the one situation and the other. There isn't. The rules of force that apply in this case, which is an arrest context, are what they are. And the state doesn't get to come back in and say, well, maybe it wasn't excessive when they were trying to arrest him, but somehow it is excessive for self-defense. That's just going to confuse the jury. There's only one standard as to whether it's excessive or not. The state doesn't get two bites at the apple.
I think that's my issue, Your Honor, is it's confusing, and here's why. 31010. 31010 is called. Yep, I'm seeing you flipping. I'm just giving the title of it. Justification and the use of force in defense of self or others. So there's a whole charge that deals with this already. And in that charge, it tells you you can use force if you reasonably believe it's necessary. And then it goes into saying you can use deadly force if you reasonably believe it's necessary and for the reasons that you can use it. It's explained and encapsulated in this charge. Excessive force is now another term that the jury's being asked to consider. And in a case like this, especially where the state is saying none of this should have happened, it all could have been prevented, it's all excessive, I think that is going to be now confusing to the jury, especially where it's laid out very clearly in the charge that deals specifically with it. So I think it's not only repetitive, but now it's going to be confusing.
We ask that you please give the pattern, Judge. Excessive force is a central concept to self-defense because lots of people can go, well, I use self-defense, but you went overboard. It's excessive. And that is usually what we've got. And here it's essential to the state's case because while Mr. Goff just argued they don't get two bites at the apple, that's not what's happening here. Mr. Goff asked for 3.16.40, which is the right to resist an unlawful arrest, where the excessive force comes into play. And that's talking about the arrest. That citizen's arrest. This specifically relates to self-defense, and it is part of the pattern, and it is part of the law that goes hand in hand with the concept of self-defense. You want to claim self-defense, that's great. But if what you did was excessive and resulted in someone's death, then the defendant's actions would not be justified. And that is what the state is going to argue here.
See, that's why it's confusing. If what you did was excessive and it resulted in someone's death, the state is defining excessive as something that results in someone's death. But the law allows the death of a person, and it's justified. And that's where 31010 makes the most sense. This confuses the issue and now allows the state to argue that death is, quote unquote, per law, per se, excessive.
No, that's not what we're arguing. Actually, the whole entire thing says if you decide the defendant used more force than was reasonably necessary to defend against the alleged victim's threats or use of force, then the defendant's actions would not be justified. It is not confusing at all. It's obvious the defense does not want this because their client pointed a shotgun at an unarmed jogger. So of course it was excessive. It's excessive just based on the video alone. And I understand why they don't want it, but the idea that it's confusing when it's been the pattern for years in every single self-defense case.
You know what has
Your Honor, if the state wants discharged twice, then we, again, sequentially, I would humbly suggest that the jury needs to be charged first on citizen arrest and the use of force in citizen arrest, and then secondarily as to self-defense. Only after the jury has determined that the use of force wasn't justified in the context of the citizen arrest do they get to the self-defense issue. And it's the only way to make what the state's doing palatable and plausible where it's not reversible error.
Okay. Yeah, now 31010 simply addresses when force can be used, the justification of force. And I've gone back through the language. I've got the charge book in front of me, taking a look at it, and having read through it, it discusses when you are justified in using force generally. It does not, 31010, or any of the 310s for that matter, address excessive force, which is this separate issue, which is under 31620. Let me just get to 316s.
So then, Your Honors, you've got also, don't forget, the bottom of 31010, where it says the defendant is not justified.
Right, correct.
So this is now a...
It's not justified, right. When you can't justify the force, which is different than using excessive force when justified. Those are two different issues.
Okay.
That's what I'm reading. That's why I'm going through it, because 31010 doesn't actually address if you're justified, if you can use 31010 and claim you are justified, what if it goes overboard? And that's where we get to 31620. So it's two different concepts that I'm reading. And based on that, I'll go ahead and keep it in.
Thank you, Judge. The state then asked for revenge.
And we oppose that. There don't see any evidence for that one.
We oppose it. Again, it's not supported by the evidence in the case.
Your Honor, it states the defendants are not justified in threatening or using force against another person solely in revenge for something that the person said or did on a previous occasion, no matter how serious the past wrong may have been. On February 11th, 2020, Travis McMichael testified that he saw Mr. Arbery, and Mr. Arbery, lifted his shirt up or something, or then put his right hand in his left pocket, or made it seem as if he had a gun. And it scared him. He got the heck out, and he went on home and told his dad, and they got their guns and came back down. It scared him. You could hear it in his voice, and his attorneys even asked him, is that you breathing there? And so at this point in time, the state's contention is that it's upsetting. No one wants to be scared. No one likes someone who scares them. No one likes the unknown. So at this point in time, our position is Travis McMichael's mad at this guy. Travis McMichael is upset and mad at Mr. Arbery. He scared him. He ran home. He had to call the police. There was this whole thing that happened, and now he's out to get him. And you can't be out to get somebody and do revenge on them for what they had done previously. And I know they're going to say, well, it actually justified his behavior because he was afraid of the guy and wanted to pull the gun out on him because he was a threat. But our position is it's actually the other way around. He's mad at him. He was scared. And this is revenge. This is, you can't do this. You can't come into my neighborhood. You can't go over that house and trespass. You can't be doing these things where I live, and I'm taking it out on you because you've been over at that house that's only a few houses down from mine, and I don't want you here. And therefore, you just can't go after somebody in revenge for previously being on a property a few houses down from your property or for scaring you one night. And that is an argument the state wishes to make, and that is why we can make that reasonable inference based on the facts of this case and the evidence and Travis McMichael's testimony here that this was actually revenge for the prior interaction that they had on February 11th.
Yeah, there's nothing in this case to support it. He never testified about it. Obviously was concerned, but the state wants to argue, we understand what that means, but not to give a charge on revenge.
I don't intend to charge revenge.
I'd like to hear this argument, Doug.
Verdict generally is the pattern.
So maybe I can accelerate this. Does anybody have any objections to verdict generally, multiple defendants, verdict form, and I'll reference the fact we're getting separate verdict forms. Court has no interest, sympathy, responsibility for sentencing, deliberations, unanimous verdict, and retire to the jury room.
None from the state.
All good. A couple things came up, though, Your Honor.
Well, still got our
Oh, we do? Well, just on those, because we're going to
Those,
take a
no,
short break.
but we got two that have come up.
Okay. Take a
Well,
short
we
break.
still have to go back to where the court said, page 19, our request to charge on probable cause, and the one that you put in there. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
I could use a
sorry.
break.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Thank you.
You're watching our live coverage of the trial and the death of Ahmaud Arbery happening there in Brunswick, South Georgia. What you've been hearing is Judge Walmsley and the prosecution and defense go through this charging conference as they work through the jury instruction, parsing through a lot of words there that are going to be delivered to the jury on Monday after closing arguments happen and before the deliberations there. Let's bring in ABC's Alex Pache, who has been following the trial for us outside that courthouse in Brunswick, Georgia, along with trial attorney C.K. Hoffler. C.K., I've been saying when it comes to this charging conference, it appears that we're all getting a legal lesson here. We're all in law school, and thankfully we have you as a professor because you can help us go through this. Things like excessive force. The state said, excessive force, that phrase is essential to the state's case. Then we saw revenge, that word out of the jury instructions there. There are going to be separate verdict forms. Walk us through what we heard just moments ago.
Well, what you heard just moments ago is just really the state and the defense arguing back and forth about every single word in the jury instructions. This judge is being very methodical, I must say, and he's letting everybody speak because he's very sensitive on people being able to use something that's being left out or something that's in as an appealable issue, a bona fide appealable issue. So he's giving everyone the opportunity to speak, and then he's going to rule. And he's actually, even on some issues, allowed them to come back and brief and give additional authority to support their position. The excessive force is very important, of course, to the prosecution's case, because they are saying that each of the defendants, particularly the McMichaels, used excessive force. So they want to have that in the jury instruction. They want to be able to explain what excessive force is because it's important for them in prevailing and carrying their burden. Remember, the prosecution has to carry the burden. They've got to prove their case beyond, and it's the burden is very high in criminal cases. In civil cases, it's the greater weight of the evidence. It's the preponderance of the evidence. In criminal cases, it's beyond a reasonable doubt because someone could lose their liberty. So what you're hearing is hard-fought discussion from both sides because they know what has to be given to the jury in order for them to prevail. And it's the prosecution now that is fighting aggressively to have strong language in there so the jury will have something to hang its hat on in the event that they decide to convict the McMichaels and Mr. Bryan. So that's where we are. This is very normal, very standard. It could even be more heated. I've seen discussions like this, charging conferences, be more heated, where the judges had to really almost separate the sides, take a little break, and come back.
CK was saying is heated. Kevin Goff getting a little animated there. We'll get back to him in just a moment. But Alex, let me turn to you because we know it's been a long day there. The jury, again, is not inside that courtroom.
That's right. It's a pretty empty gallery inside that courthouse today, and actually even outside the courthouse. I mean, there's obviously a consistent media presence here, but we're not seeing the crowds that we saw yesterday. We actually, even the days leading up to yesterday, there were more people here. And look, I mean, maybe part of that is because the jury is not there. We're not hearing testimony. This charging conference is long and detailed and super technical. But I imagine that, again, after this weekend, whenever we start to hear closing arguments, we'll get a little bit more activity out here.
And CK, Alex just mentioned how technical it is. And essentially, I always say we do this in the world of journalism as well. We learn as much about the subject and the topic and the issue as possible, and then we try to make it as simple as possible for the viewer to understand. And so we've got to do this for the jury as well. They get those jury instructions, and I would think what we're hearing today could be very complex, very confusing for them. But obviously on Monday, Judge Walmsley and both sides want to make this pretty simple for the jury when they get those instructions.
No, absolutely. There's still going to be some words that are confusing for the jury, but the judge will probably, this judge, based on his performance up until this point, will probably be very methodical and read those instructions slowly and carefully. Then, really honestly, what the defense and the prosecution must do is they must take the critical jury instructions that will help support their case and explain to the jury the law that the judge is going to instruct them on. Because the closing arguments are before the jury receives the charge. So once they agree on the charge, they've got the language, which of course would happen before they do their closings. It is up to the prosecution and the defense, prosecution will go first, to explain to the jury what is meant by any of the instructions that they must have them understand. That's the duty of the lawyers in the case. You can't just leave it to the judge to read it. You've got to tell this jury how to rule in your favor, what they need to focus on. And the prosecution is going to have to put it together for the jury because they have the burden of proof of how they can return a verdict in favor of a conviction against all three of the defendants, and why, based on the law that the jurors are going to receive from the judge shortly. That's going to be critically important. Otherwise, the jurors can just be confused. If they're confused, that will create this thought of maybe there's reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt, if reasonable doubt comes into the picture, then you have acquittals. So I believe it's going to be on the prosecution to, yes, continue to fight, but then they've got to explain the critical jury instructions to the jurors in closing. I always reserve part of my closing argument, because remember, it's closing argument. It's not a statement, but it's argument for the jurors, because you can add in examples. You're arguing to the jury of why and how they can rule in your favor and why this instruction is important and what they must do. And you need to use graphics. You need to draw on the board, do all the things you need to do, because implanted in their mind should be what you were saying if you're the prosecution in terms of how to convict these defendants. If you're the defense, you're doing the exact same thing, but from the other vantage point. You're saying to them, there is reasonable doubt all over the place. And if you follow the law, you must acquit all three of these defendants. Each of the lawyers will get up there and say that, representing the defendants. So no matter how complicated it is, it's up to the lawyers on both sides to simplify it for the jury. Otherwise, they may very well lose the jury on one word. You don't want to leave the jury to their own devices when they've never been exposed to some of this language.
And let's remind our viewers that Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, William Roddy Bryant are facing 9 counts, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment. CK, you mentioned there that obviously the prosecution has to meet this burden of proof here. Was there anything that surprised you about what you've heard so far that the prosecutor, Linda Danikowski, was trying to get into those jury instructions? Like, she wanted the word revenge. Did that surprise you, or any other words surprise you that she was trying to get in there?
No, it didn't surprise me at all. What she wants to do is get as much, I want to say inflammatory, but words that would point to the fact that the McMichaels had ulterior motives, that this was not about self-defense. This was about revenge. This was about excessive use of force. It was about everything other than following the law, because they just wanted, they saw this black man and they just assumed he was up to no good. They just assumed he was committing a crime. They just assumed that he was a thug and he was a criminal, and they were determined to track him down, hunt him down, do whatever they could, and then ultimately murder him. And for that to be the case, she needs these words in the jury instructions. You're not going to get everything that you want, but hopefully you get enough so that you can make your case, if you're the prosecution, to the jury, so the jury can hang its hat on a jury instruction and get a conviction. So
and Alex, there was a word that Linda Danikowski wanted taken out, but it was left in.
That's right, and that's in this phrase, initial unjustified aggressor. The prosecutor just wanted initial aggressor in here, saying that she believed that that would conflate and confuse the defense, or excuse me, confuse the jury with some of the tent poles of a citizen's arrest. Also, that in closing, it could be something that the defense would use to throw seeds of doubt as to if the actions by Gregory and Travis McMichael during that chase and ultimately pulling that shotgun on Ahmaud Arbery that day were indeed justified.
Wow. If we're in law school, then Alex Brachet, I think you would definitely get an A while I'm getting a C+ over here. No, and again, back to our professor, CK, it looks like there are going to be some props that defense attorney Kevin Goff wants to use. He mentioned something about a toy car here. I guess we shouldn't be surprised that potentially he could come with some props to his closing argument.
Well, yes. You know, he's going to, and again, remember, he just represents Mr. Bryan. So he's going to want to demonstrate that what Mr. Bryan did with his truck, I guess maybe that's a toy car, was perfectly reasonable, that he was completely justified in doing that, and that it was not vicious, it was not aggressive. He felt that there was a crime being committed. I mean, they're going to have to build this case to justify self-defense. So if he has this toy car, maybe he's going to, and I don't know what he's going to do, but maybe he's going to use that prop to justify what his client did, and also try to separate what his client did versus what the other two defendants did. Because remember, his position is, don't treat my client the way you treat them. I'm not saying that they were wrong and they weren't justified, but my client definitely wasn't wrong, and my client was justified in what he did. And so the only thing that he would really want to demonstrate is the use of the truck, Mr. Bryan's truck, the actions that he took relative to Ahmaud Arbery and his truck.
And we will see what happens, what plays out during those closing arguments expected for Monday. Again, let's go back into the courtroom. That quick break is over. Judge Walmsley is speaking.
Cause can be based upon the collective knowledge of others, so long as there's some degree of communication between them. I also, right now, would like to add, if you would look on state's request to charge number 57, they have a nice quote from the forehand case, page 22.
Forehand, got it.
Right in the middle of it, it says that the officer need not see the act which constitutes that the crime takes place, but I like, if by any of his senses he has personal knowledge of its commission, which is consistent not only with forehand, but also the language of those other cases. So if we were to stick that clause in as well to help explain where probable cause can come from. So it could be based on the collective knowledge of others, any of his senses, he has personal knowledge of its commission. Actually, that's very clumsy, but where maybe with you have it in front of you, wherever you thought that clause could come in. Because I think, obviously the state and the defense would agree that that's how one develops probable cause. What you hear, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you understand, and what you, through all of your senses. Or just the development of probable cause through all of your senses. Because you made a good point, Your Honor, between the hearing things, seeing Matt Albenzie.
So I'm confused a little bit then. You're asking that be dropped into the probable cause charge?
In determining, when we're talking about the totality of the circumstances, where probable cause can be based upon just something having to do with information gathered through any of the individual's senses, but it also can be based upon the collective knowledge of others, so long as there's some degree of communication between them.
So, Your Honor, if I may, first off, by the existence of any of his senses is already going to be charged on the top of page 19. So that is up there with terms are synonymous, and it talks about if by the exercise of any of his senses he has knowledge of its commission.
Oh, okay.
So that's already there.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I was just getting late, and I didn't.
Okay.
I knew I liked that line.
And it's there. Your Honor, the problem the state has with this request is that the state agreed that if we were going to put this in, that we wanted it if the offense is a felony and the offender's attempting to escape. If we take out those two lines, then it's a private person can arrest the offender upon probable cause. But that's not really what the statute says. It says you have to may arrest the offender if the offense is committed in his presence or within his immediate knowledge. If the offense is a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, that's when the probable cause comes into play. So the state, if we're going to do the definition of probable cause, would agree with the defense that the offense is a felony and the offender is attempting to escape.
Okay, well, maybe looking at some of my concern then with this suspicion alone, gets satisfied if, going off the requested charge number 4, I do the entire thing, including 1, the offense is a felony, and 2, the offender is attempting to escape, and then I'm comfortable taking it down to and including the line in determining whether probable cause existed, the totality of the circumstances must be considered, because then you go back up to this language that the state's referred to at the top of 19, talking about use of senses and has knowledge of the commission or that the accused admitted that such crime is being or has been committed.
And that final line, based on the collective knowledge of others, so long as there's some degree of communication between them.
Yeah, my notes, the problem or the concern I have with that's talking about police cases. I know that I think Goodman and Burgesson were at least police cases. I don't have notes. They're all police cases.
All police cases.
Judge, I just want to make clear, for the first time maybe in 30 years, I disagree with Ms. Hogue.
Get the court reporter to market.
We are conflating presence or immediate knowledge with probable cause. There's not a single case that distinguishes what probable cause means for a policeman versus a citizen. Probable cause is the level of suspicion of a reasonable and prudent person under the totality of the circumstances. It's Fourth Amendment law.
Yeah.
There's
and I think I agree. And I was just, I don't know, I got caught maybe at the end of the day into a discussion.
We're fast in headache relief, so he can become faster in...
I think in determining whether probable cause existed, the totality of the circumstances must be considered as appropriate language. My concern about the last sentence is we start getting into these police cases that are very different circumstances than we have here. But I think totality of the circumstances allows the parties to argue everything that was known, appropriately known for probable cause to be developed in this particular case.
Well, the other problem I'm having, Judge, with this charge is what Mr. Rubin just stood up and said is nowhere in this charge. There is no definition.
no.
And that's a problem for me because right now the definition of probable cause has been given to this jury by Travis McMichael and not by this court. So unless the actual words of this is what probable cause is in there, this charge doesn't provide the jury with a definition of probable cause.
And like I said, the definition of probable cause is the same whether it's a citizen or a police officer. It's Fourth Amendment law.
And I have a problem with that. I think I've been very open in expressing my empathy for the other side of this, but that's just not reciprocated back. We need to focus on what's most hurtful here to these people, myself included, which is the loss of life and the sanctity of life. I am not pro-violence or pro-destruction at all, but life is more important than any of that.
Come on, come on. Take your time, you're doing great.
I just want the city of Kenosha to understand, KPD to understand, that nobody here is ever going to stop.
Come on.
Nobody here is ever going to stop attempting to expose the flaws in this system. I am, like I said, not surprised at what happened here today, but I am heartbroken. But what we need to also focus on too is look at all these people around us right now. I mean, it's a lot of media, but look at all these people around us right now. Look at all these people that have been showing up every day, you know, online across the world with the support. We're more than them. We're bigger than them.
That's right.
No more division between us. Focus on the common goal here and get something done, because I will not rest. We will not rest, exactly.
We will not
We will
rest.
not rest.
We will not rest.
There are so many names. The name that's most close to my heart is Anthony Huber, but there are so many names of people's families, people's loved ones. And that's what drives us to keep going. Just hold on to that.
Yep.
And let them know that nobody's going anywhere.
Thank you so much. Hannah, how are you spelling your name, love?
HANNAHGITTINGS.
I hope you, the media, understand why we're not taking questions for the young ladies. It's just merely an opportunity for them to express themselves. For those who are around here, no justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
Who's our next speaker, Kyle?
Our next speaker is going to be Dee Williams from the Revolution Club.
This verdict is wrong. Kyle Rittenhouse and the whole damn system is guilty. It's time to get organized for revolution, nothing less. A system that greenlights the white supremacist vigilante slaughter of people standing up for black lives is completely illegitimate. It needs to be brought down, overthrown at the soonest possible time. Everyone who cares about justice, about black lives, about a decent future for humanity needs to get with the Revcoms and get busy preparing for revolution. Anthony and JoJo were heroes. Hero at a time when a lot of people are out for themselves and into only themselves and selfishness. No, and they paid the ultimate price, and we honor their sacrifice. Our heart goes out to Carrie and Hannah and everybody who loved them. The uprising of the beautiful summer of 2020 forced tens of millions of people around this country and even around the world to confront the reality of what this system is built on. Never before have a lot of people even thought about these questions. It showed what is possible when millions take to the streets in determined struggle. But it also showed that, and this verdict confirms it, that this system fundamentally can't be reformed, that white supremacy is built into it, and that it will take a real revolution overthrowing this capitalist system, its white supremacy, to finally uproot it. The foul and cowardly killings of JoJo and Anthony Rittenhouse are part of a larger picture, a picture where fascists are seeking to violently impose their will on people who are outrageously protesting this system. And you see them now in the school boards, in all over the place, in these anti-mask things. There is a fascist assault on people who care. And this is a quote from our declaration. These days there's a lot of talk about another civil war, especially from fascists in government and the broader society, who think they could just carry out a one-sided slaughter of those they hate, including black and other people of color, black people and other people of color, illegal immigrants, uppity women, and those who don't conform to traditional sexual and gender relations and norms. This situation needs to be radically changed to where the masses of people are prepared to defeat these fascists and do so as part of getting rid of this system which has bred these fascists. And all
Here at Olympic, we're all about good.
We need repolarization. This mic went out. We need That's
okay. Go ahead.
You know what I mean? If it's really about women's health, what don't we make it about women's health? I advocate for everybody's health. Just like I advocate, look, I'm not an anti-vaccine, I'm a pro-freedom. You know what? It's good to wait based on your medical issue, whether you need a vaccination. I've had 17 colon surgeries, I've had 4 surgeries, and various surgeries in the last year and a half. My doctor told me not to take the vaccine, so I won't, based on my medical history. But if you have a different medical history, that's your decision. But at the end of the day, I'm sick and tired of the government stepping into Americans' lives, telling us what we're supposed to do with our body and our rights and how we're supposed to do. Less government, more freedom. I have no problem with it. I don't want to be funded because I said less government. Not less different. The law enforcement in this country has been so much in the last 2 years. It's unbelievable. I give total props to anybody who's still a law enforcement officer. You're dealing with everything in Are they taking my shot? This is about America. We as a country are going to let the media and let everybody else divide us, but can we actually sit down at the table and have a conversation? And the people that can't sit down at the table and have a conversation because their emotions get the best of them, then maybe they should be out of the conversation. I've been 30 miles. I can get home now. I actually have I'm going to try to find I don't have a problem with it. I think the police have been underappreciated in this country for the last 2 years and just basically shit on for the last 2 years, which is a disgrace to our country. Because these are the people that are protecting our everyday lives. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. That's why I believe in a drug department. Okay, so let's talk about that. If you say a life is a life, what about a guy who was recently convicted of raping 14 women and got probation? If a life is a life, let's call it all. You can call something else out. I'm going to call it all out. Okay? Because that's what it's about. I agree. You raped 14 women and you found guilty, but you should be in jail.
What would you say that our
What conversation? Well, I had a lot of deep conversations.
District MP, Red Ford escape. We're at the scene. We're being told right now.
Denver. Multiple squads with the PNH. Copy. 671.
Victim should be a Demetrius and he went off a KMH.
A motor vehicle collision. He was in the passenger front seat without seatbelts on, airbag deployment, and we did see some stars webbing on the...
Looks like.
Come on.
We want to reimagine what our community looks like. We need to heal. And when we say heal, we don't mean going back to the status quo, because we saw where that got us. We mean improving. We mean progressing. We mean moving forward. What does that look like? That means demilitarizing the police.
Come on.
We do not need vehicles that are used in war zones on American streets. We do not need vehicles that are used in war zones on American streets. We do not need chemical substances banned by the Geneva Convention utilized on American streets on American citizens. We need affordable housing.
Yes, sir.
We need to address homelessness. The reason why JoJo Rosenbaum was out that night was because he had nowhere to go. And we also need to address the education system.
That's right. Come on.
Maybe if we fully invested into our next generation of youth, then a 17-year-old wouldn't be out on the streets with a gun and kill 2 people and crippling another. We don't need that. So we were here tonight, and we will be here all night, calling for peace, calling for healing, calling for a reimagination of not only our community here in Kenosha, but also our state and also the nation. Because we all know we need it right now. So for folks that are around here or in the region or in the area, swing by. We'll be here all night. We have heat. We have music. We're going to do some yoga. We're going to build community. Because that's what we need right now. So I'm going to turn it over to someone who has been building that community the past year and a half, who has done the work to make sure, if you look around for folks that aren't from the community, you could notice that there aren't as many businesses boarded up as there were last year. There is no fence around the courthouse. And that's due to work from folks on the ground like Tanya McLean, the executive director of Leaders of Kenosha. So I'm going to turn it over to her right now.
Including a blue SUV, possibly like a Trailblazer, and a tan sedan, especially if you're wearing a red or orange.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming. We know that this outcome is yet another example of a system that protects white violence and devalues our lives based on who we are and what we look like. We love, support, and fight alongside the Blake family, the Huber family, the Rosenbaum family, Gabe Groschwitz, and the people demanding true justice and safety. We believe individuals and institutions bear responsibility for the loss of Anthony and Joe's lives and for the trauma and harm inflicted upon Jacob and Gage. Their families, the Kenosha community, and those who witnessed this unspeakable violence. We are terrified by this verdict, even as we know no verdict would have brought back the lives of Anthony Huber and JoJo Rosenbaum or changed the impact of brutality on Jacob Blake and Gage Groschwitz. A verdict alone would not keep us safe. We come together to mourn the lives lost to the same racist system that devalues black lives and devalue the lives of Anthony and JoJo. We are coming together to heal the scars left by the wounds of this grief. We will care for each other and remember why we continue to march. We've been out here for way over a year in the cold, in all the elements, and as Kyle stated, we're here for the long haul. As Hannah said, we're not going anywhere. It's time that people realize what their work is in this community. One of Locke's big initiatives is voting. We know that we need people to get to the...
We got 2 shell casings here on the scene. Can you let me know what's going on at the hospital, what kind of injuries?
10, I haven't heard yet.
Just off the intersection of 61st Street on 12th Avenue.
10. 659.
We had a Marine Trailblazer left occupied one time. Couldn't tell the driver. It was around 55 Adams 60 Street. We tried to turn around on the west side of it, checking the area.
10-4.
Go ahead. If you have a moment, if detectives are coming out here, I probably need one at KMH and one at the scene. I have a couple sort of witnesses at KMH. 5:53 p.m. Clear the hospital. I'm going to go over to the main scene.
10-4.
Swap PD. I don't know if he's going to be able to receive you inside the hospital.
$558 was after B.
Whoever's calling 5669, he's inside the building.
10-4, calling 469.
Copy.
Recorders 469. Number was 348335. Copy. 356.
Service 06.
Ten four.
Two hundred at 270. Oh, can you call into the office, please? 10-4.
360 on assist motor.
Go ahead.
360, you're going to respond to 5836 place 58306 place. Complainant, Stacy Bluish transmission on his 2004 black Chevy Impala. Needs assistance with getting a tow. He's right in front of this address on Highway HS west of Green Bay.
Sheriff. You can also clear out that 911 hang up. I just drove through there. There's no issues.
10-4, 360. 460. Go ahead.
469 and 583 are on to 11th and 61st.
10-4.
Yeah, I'm John Boy 5181.
I'm John Boy 5181 comes back on a 2008 Ford Edge, silver color, to a Samantha Mays, 1116 61st Street, valid no one.
10-4. Keep that in the call, please. Apparently one of the family members saying that it's related to the Volt shooting, and that was one of the vehicles that was shared that might have caused this.
It's already in the call.
Good. Shooting at KMH. 10-4.
Is the suspect vehicle going to be the maroon Trailblazer, or then after that it says a blue SUV and a tan sedan? So it's the maroon Trailblazer Stonewall.
So I'm sitting relief. I'll try to get some more information. I know they were checking the area for a maroon Trailblazer, and then we got information from about a sedan leaving the area as well. Some of the notes in the call say a blue SUV, a tan sedan. Suspects wearing a red or orange hoodie.
Take the guy into custody, do all the paperwork, and
It says the suspect vehicle
put
is
it
a
in county
maroon
jail.
Trailblazer that went northbound.
How much Orange County would be involved? I don't know. Check this out. Here comes maybe a pit. He just keeps jamming on the the forward speed here, coming up to a right turn committed north. And we're going to climb up here a little bit. 7, I've got you below you. It's your 11. Wrong side of the road again. And this is a fairly residential area. Once you get off this major, this divided highway, it's residents on both sides. We're still south of the 5. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Another spike strip. I think he just ran over it. They're not sure whether he hit it.
From one of the vehicles supposed to be blue SUV. Folder. Getting across the response SUV.
Westbound, yep.
I did not get that information. That was someone else. But there was supposed to be a maroon Trailblazer in the area, according to 649, I think. Yep.
Right.
639.
639.
Oh, okay.
All right, we're going to get a little bit closer to him here and continuing westbound.
347.
Oh. That could be, because he's pretty close to it. we're flying right over the top of this guy. And luckily Rich Prickett knows exactly what he's doing with the camera, although his pilot doesn't sometimes. So right underneath the skids, we're going to continue around, and oh, the camera didn't jumble. Good job, Rich, thank you. So back eastbound, we're about a half a mile away from the 5. If he were to make that right turn, he'd be able to get back on the 5. He's not going to do it.
Folks, JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. You can see choppers, multiple choppers flying overhead, some with law enforcement, some with media. Clearly here we're live with KTLA's feed. We'll hit the touchscreen here. We're also live from KNBC's feed. This stolen vehicle pursuit between Los Angeles and Orange counties, California. Now you can see in Norwalk, California. This is a chase that at one point was on the 5 freeway in the wrong direction, the driver going towards oncoming traffic. It was a major hazard, and they closed off a portion of the roadways just because it was a danger to drivers in the area. So that's why you're hearing from the chopper coverage all of the concern about whether or not the driver is going to try to get back on the 5 freeway. We've seen several U-turns in the last several minutes. We've also seen a couple of spike strips thrown out to try and pop those tires and bring this to a resolution without anybody getting hurt. We'll go back here live to the KTLA feed, and now a vehicle, well, and you can see there's a little bit of a delay between the two feeds. A pickup truck pulled in front there in that moment as we were transitioning from one shot to another, trying to, well, what it appeared to be trying to stop the driver. Driver navigated right around it, and here we are now with no regard for the laws of the roads here in Santa Fe Springs, California. The driver in the Honda here continuing to elude police who are following behind 6-7 vehicles following this driver throughout California. We'll continue to listen in here to KTLA and KNBC.
Well, last one we counted 6, and so they may all be LAPD. I couldn't see from the door, but we counted 6 black and whites, or 6 of those cruisers, which are tough in a pursuit. I'd rather be in a car than a SUV as far as chasing somebody, because they're pretty unstable. But that's what they have. So, you know, the whole idea, it started a few years ago with the CHP, was just non-engagement, with the least amount of effort necessary to successfully take somebody into custody. And then, of course, it depends on, you know, what's happening at the moment. But instead of chasing these guys into the ground, they pull off more than they used to, that's for sure. And it started with the CHP about, you know, in the mid-'80s.
If no one's willing, maybe that it's going to go like 5 miles.
Right, tracking, exactly. And so they did that, and then after CHP, then LA Sheriff's Department started. The place where they really don't do that anymore is San Bernardino and Riverside County. They follow those guys no matter where they go, and they don't really have these long-lasting pursuits. Of course, they have wide open spaces, you know. We're getting real close to the 5 here. Or the 90, I'm sorry, the 90. No, it's the, no, 91. Get turn around myself. Yep, absolutely. So south and approaching the 91. We've got some traffic up ahead. We've got access to the freeway if he makes a right-hand turn. So that would be the westbound side of the 91. See what he does here. If he even knows the area. He may not even know this area. But again, a stolen car from Newton Division. This has been going on for about an hour, maybe a little more. And into the left turn lane and no U-turn. Okay, good. So continuing south, he missed his access to the freeway. That's the 91 you saw him cross over, 91 freeway. And he slowed down quite a bit. Let's see. Boy, let's see if they'll pit him here. This is okay. We're gonna zoom in on the tires here in a second, and we'll see if there's any damage. We should see some. What do they look like to you? Okay. Yeah. Think. Yeah, must have missed it. Okay. And the general direction here is south. And just crossed over the 91.
With a beard and a baseball cap, refusing to leave and asking people for money.
As we listen in here to the chopper coverage from our sister station KTLA, JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now, noting that the tires appear to be largely intact after a couple of spike strip attempts by law enforcement pursuing this stolen vehicle in Los Angeles and Orange counties, California. And also noting here as we zoom in very clearly, we are looking at a Honda Civic Coupe now in La Palma, California. A pit maneuver. We have seen officers trying to get in position for a pit maneuver. What they are trying to avoid is the driver getting back onto the 5 freeway, because earlier on in this pursuit, the driver of this vehicle, the Honda, the stolen vehicle that we're talking about here, was driving in the wrong direction into oncoming traffic. So they are trying to prevent the driver from getting back onto the freeway. And that's why we're hearing so much reference for our Florida viewers, hearing so many references to the 5, that being the 5 freeway in California. Listening in here to KTLA, our sister station in Los Angeles.
7502, can you look in house if we have anything on a Aubrey Jones?
So that makes, you know, did it give a minimum? I always heard it was at least like 18 to 21 for a minimum. So there's a small window of opportunity there for sure. Maximum, okay. Because you think about it, you've got a missile, a 4,000-pound missile out of control, and you want to make sure you know what's around it, that's for sure. So we made a right turn. We're westbound now, just north of the Los Alamitos Air Station. Yeah, I've got an hour. If we're close to Long Beach, I can stretch it to an hour 15. Getting ready to cross over the wash. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
This suspect into custody, especially after all of this dangerous driving we've seen. Now on a little bit of a smaller road here, going through some greenery still in the Cerritos area. This, I believe, is going to be Del Amo. But LAPD, even as we get further and further from the LA area, LAPD is staying right with it. Yeah, you definitely do, because this has been one of those ones, as we've said before, another spike strip there, LAPD dropping another spike strip there, and I think that got at least 2 tires here, but that definitely spooked the driver as he speeds up a little bit around traffic going through the center median here, and that's when this gets really scary, because when LAPD gets up close to the driver, when they make moves on the driver to attempt a pit, we see this person drive even more erratically than we've been seeing before. And that's a very scary situation, but at least we think that that spike strip made impact on at least 2 of the tires, so hopefully that will bring a change on this driver's behavior and maybe slow this thing down a bit.
I've often wondered what the on the low profiles when they have the run flat tires, how they're affected by spikes. I guess it would. Yeah.
Can you look up anything in house 6207 12 pass, see if you have any TX for the owner or resident?
10.700.
Got him.
Suspicious. 7926 19th Avenue, 7926 19th Avenue. 244 with Arizona plates was parked in front of there with two females.
One more spike.
That had bright purple hair. They moved along, but now they're just driving around the area.
Another good spike.
700. Good. I just want to verify 520712 Avenue.
620712 Avenue.
1047. Yeah, calling guys.
714, can you attach me to that shot fire? They've been out here, and then you can clear me.
What's in front of him? Nobody's in front of him. Why is he stopping? It's got to be the spike.
671.
So there's no reason for him to be stopping other than a spike.
610911.
Looks like he's on the rim.
Just for 43, I am out with the RO, Daniel.
10436.
JB Buno, a reminder to our audience here with you live on WFLA Now. This is a live, ongoing situation, a disclaimer for our audience that now that the vehicle has come to a stop, officers getting out of their vehicles with firearms pointed. Just a reminder, this is a live feed, so a disclaimer to our audience. The suspect yet to get out of their vehicle. We'll continue to watch live. We have a couple of different angles to show you. In fact, let's show you the rear angle here for a moment. And now the driver appears to be slowly moving, and it might have just been a ploy to get officers out of the vehicle. Officers now getting back into the vehicle.
We're trying to get a closer look here as we look through the haze. You guys have probably noticed a little bit of a hazy picture. It's a very hazy day out in LA, but as I punch in the camera on that front left tire, it does look a little bit flat to me. So that would be a good sign, and that might be why this driver is now slowing down to a creep on Del Lama Boulevard, but a very dangerous situation now as we have oncoming traffic, and LAPD doesn't want to make any moves or do anything with that oncoming traffic in the line of fire right there. And now, what do we have here? We have a pickup truck with a driver that has just jumped out of his car and basically blocked the flow of traffic for this pursuit, and that might bring it to a stop. We really don't want to see people get involved or put themselves or their cars in positions to get involved with this, with pursuits, but I think we've just seen that. We saw a driver in this gray pickup truck park his pickup truck in the wrong way and get out and run away. And now we've seen the driver of the pursuit vehicle come to a complete stop, making a little bit of a turn there. We've trucks before.
The driver clearly trying to maneuver around the pickup truck, trying to get up onto the curb, even with the partially or completely flat tire.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This doesn't surprise me after what we've seen in this pursuit so far. The driver hasn't hesitated to get onto sidewalks to get around, and that guy now getting back in his truck, and he wants his truck back, and he wants to be able to drive away. But I think LAPD is going to want to have some words with him after that. And now the suspect driver backing up his vehicle. A LAPD officer has his rifle out. This could come to a very dangerous end here, because whenever you have a suspect using his vehicle to hit anybody or anything, that becomes a very dangerous situation for LAPD. And as we saw a couple minutes ago, it looks like that left front tire is going to be flat. So now this very erratic pursuit driver is dealing with a vehicle that finally is incapable of some of the things that he or she wants to do. You see LAPD, again, officers from the Newton Division moving up very close with guns drawn. They are barking out orders at this driver. But this driver in the past has not been afraid to throw it in reverse and try and get out of here that way. I see some of those lights blinking there. I don't think those are the reverse lights. Those might just be the hazard lights. And it appears we've come to a stop now here, at least for the time being.
Want to show you the other angle that we have. This is KNBC. We also have KTLA.
Heard them, and they're just telling him to got you there. They're tell him to drop the keys out of the car, expose his hands, and then open the car. And it's basically your felony stop, what they used to call a felony stop. I don't know if they still do. But he's definitely a felon, and he's escaping or trying to. So we'll see what happens here, whether he's even able to hear the cops. We're up pretty high. We've got a bunch of helicopters up here, but we're all, 1,500 feet above him. That's where we were saying that that intersection had been blocked off a little bit further west, so they're not going to have any oncoming traffic, except for that one little side street there in the residential. See where they blocked the traffic there? And let's see if they still. So this one guy's coming. This one black and white's coming towards the not termination, but the end of the pursuit. And there he is.
The driver appears to be moving again.
A little bit of speed. I really wonder what's going on with those tires.
10-14.
Apparently. It's a little bit of tread, Rich is telling me. So 3 spike strips, 3 successful ones. Shout out to whoever makes these tires. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it gets even tougher for pits and all that other stuff if he doesn't have the normal driving. So is that a driver's side? No, the word driver's side is still closed. So there's something flashing in the, is that just the lights in back of him? Okay, thank you.
Got a record time call for you then.
A reminder to our audience as we're watching a live unfolding situation here out of California. Just a disclaimer to our audience that anything could happen at any moment. We now have officers with guns drawn, pointed at the Honda Civic that has been eluding officers for more than an hour, driving in the wrong direction on the 5, the freeway in California. Forcing the closures of some areas of traffic, which is no small thing in Los Angeles when you have to close down roads for traffic. Don't know exactly how the situation is going to end, but clearly with the tires, or at least one tire, perhaps multiple tires being almost completely flat or completely flat, the driver running out of options here. We have 2 signals to show you, but we're going to stay here with the clearest one, which is from our sister station, KTLA.
What's that? I'm fine. Do you want to be in front? Oh, yeah, okay. We just got to clear that one big tree. I'll expedite that.
Now we've got spectators.
Coming at you, 7 lower. Well, we feel much better getting that big tree out of the way. You could hear that from Chip's microphone. You could hear that helicopter. That wasn't us. That's the LAPD Air 18 that's doing low orbits. The rest of us are way up here. And, okay, that's... All right, take him out. It's time to. Let's go. All right. Oh, come on.
We're going to switch camera feeds to KNBC.
And the driver is continuing on. This guy has no intention of stopping and will do whatever he can to drive out of a pit. And we see this lead LAPD unit again, another harder pit, pushing the driver from the rear. But that also appears to not have any effect. This car with multiple flat tires is
all right, we're about to get obstructed here by this building, going back to KTLA.
Got him.
Multiple pit maneuvers denting the rear of the vehicle, and now the vehicle once again at a stop. But we have yet to see the driver.
Something just occurred. When you hear them talking about the adrenaline of the officers in pursuit and how that may or may not affect how and when and where they take them into custody and force and all that kind of stuff, at this stage in the pursuit, there's no more adrenaline. The adrenaline is gone because they've already chased this guy. He's stopped. It's been going on for such a long time. Everybody's pretty cool, calm, and collected, I have to tell you that. From the primary to the backup, everybody's pretty cool about this. So we're going to see what happens here where this guy takes off again. Let's pull back just a little bit, Rich, see what's in front of him. Okay, so he's got a black and white in front of him. He can get around that if he wanted. And Chip, we can see you down there. 7 and below you. 16. And
with the orange hoodie, suit on the driver, occupant, probably the shooter. It's on the right, and that is in that vehicle.
10 for thing.
The wide shot here giving us some perspective on any potential exit routes for the driver of the Honda Coupe. Reason being is because he's been surrounded seemingly with few, if little, options to actually escape the situation that the driver was in, and then the driver was able to escape.
now off your right side low.
58, 71st Street, 12858.
But for those of you just joining us,
That's 5.
that vehicle right there that they're zooming in on is the Honda Civic that authorities have been pursuing for more than an hour now in California across multiple jurisdictions, multiple counties, including on the 5 freeway. We have not yet seen the driver, not behind the wheel of the vehicle, but it looks like you can see some motion behind the wheel of the car. There was just some motion there from looking beyond the windshield. We don't know if there's passengers in the vehicle as well, but we have it confirmed from KTLA and KNBC that this is a stolen vehicle pursuit.
706 copies, 10-8, thanks.
We can now show you, let's show a zoomed in shot.
The driver looks
KNBC.
agitated at this point, which kind of makes sense and goes with everything else we've seen so far. I'm just going to widen out the shot here, just you know, in case anything
driver's
happens
moving
that we
again.
don't want to see. And
So they could at least see what's going on. Yeah, and you know, on one of these, it was a couple of weeks ago, a guy had refused to get out of his car.
The driver now facing the officers with their guns drawn towards the driver's side portion of the vehicle. We have seen the driver of this vehicle go up onto the curb in the past in this pursuit. You can see now that one vehicle is trying to close off that option for the driver to prevent him from pulling in there into the parking lot.
431, you're on 1.
Continuing to listen in from KTLA.
10-4.
Can you see if there's anything in house on the Demetria Flex, FLAX?
X is in Sam or F is in Frank?
F is in Frank Lincoln, Adam, X-ray.
Where? Yeah?
10-4 reporting.
Oh, okay. I won't go any further north.
Always engaging a new digital audience on WFLA Now. And to those of you who have just joined us, JB Buno here with you on WFLA Now, following 2 feeds, one from KNBC, this one here from KTLA, our sister stations in Los Angeles, both having choppers in the air, as well as law enforcement having a chopper in the air. They are very, very strategically now moving in on this stolen vehicle that they have been pursuing now for more than an hour. And you can see now that there is a strategy at play with law enforcement,
well,
with both their vehicles and firearms and personnel listening
What would turn this into a barricaded suspect situation? Any ideas? Because we've got a couple. LAPD, and the reason we're bringing this up because it's involved in the city of Los Angeles. They have the SWAT team, and you need one of three elements for a barricaded suspect. He has to have committed a crime, he has to believe to have been armed or is armed, and he won't show himself, he won't get out. Now, whether that's a house, a garage, a trash can, a car, this could easily turn into a barricaded situation, a barricaded suspect, where they would call out the SWAT team. That's, you know, they're going to try to talk him out first, but that's what they need to call them out, and they could very well do it if this guy refuses to get out.
You can see from this shot from KTLA that especially that front side, driver's side tire is
you're right.
completely
I
deflated
think they
by the
would.
spike strips.
Unless they carry, along with those beanbags, they do carry gas, but I think that would be a SWAT call out. I mean, that would be a SWAT decision after they've surrounded the area, taken the high ground. Rich pointing out that rear left window has been blown out, so that looks like you know, a little beanbag operation there. So whether they're going to launch some gas in there, I don't know if they have the capability of doing that. It may if this turns into a barricade, then SWAT would probably handle that.
If you haven't added it to the case, Adam John Boyd 5181. It's a 4 SUV.
A lot of our Facebook Live observers noting that the window has been blown out, a circular cut or what's close to a circular cut in that window on the rear driver's side.
On top 11. Okay.
Go ahead with that.
And again, it's worth noting here, folks, as we come back here in the WFLA Now Stream Center, it's worth noting we have not yet seen this driver, and we do not know how many occupants are in the vehicle. We've seen motion, of course, behind the driver, behind the wheel of the car, but we have no idea how many people are inside this vehicle. It's a 4-door coupe. It's a 4-door Honda Civic, but it could be driver, could be passenger. We just don't know. We do know it's a stolen vehicle out of California that has been part of this pursuit now for more than an hour.
I just was getting a beeper. It's probably on my phone.
Let's listen. This is KTLA. Let's bounce over to KNBC.
LAPD started their pursuit. This was in the city of LA, around the downtown area, or a little bit removed from there. Suspect came down the 5 freeway, getting on surface streets for a little bit, making a lot of aggressive maneuvers on very tight streets, continuing down the 5 freeway past the 91, eventually making a U-turn on the 5 freeway and going northbound in the southbound lanes. And I think that's the video that we're showing there now, as on the left side of your screen, as the suspect was in the carpool lane, basically using the carpool lane on the southbound side as his own northbound side. A lot of very close calls with oncoming traffic there, eventually turning around and getting back on surface streets in the Buena Park area, continuing on surface streets now to the Lakewood area where we stand now, which is pretty much a standoff situation at the intersection of Bloomfield and Del Amo Boulevard, where LAPD, way out of their range, but since this was their pursuit, they are continuing to effort bringing this one to a safe end. You see LA County Sheriff's deputies also on scene here to try and control traffic and try and get pedestrians out of the way and just make sure that they are safe from that perspective. And then you see where we're at now, where LAPD has used one of their cruisers to try and pin the rear bumper of this car against a curb on Bloomfield Avenue. And they've also used some less than lethal fire to shoot out the
I want to get everyone to a little bit of a clearer shot. This is again from KTLA. You can see just how many officers are behind the doors of these cruisers.
I'd like to see that driver.
And I'd also like to point out for our audience that we have been told that Downey police in California say that the vehicle itself might have been stolen in a carjacking, a morning carjacking this Friday, November 19th, 2021. That's a possibility, according to police there, Downey police in California. multiple pit maneuver attempts, multiple spike strip attempts lead us to this point, but we have not yet seen the driver. The vehicle has tinted windows, so it's difficult to see into the vehicle itself, but there is now a hole in the rear driver's side window, a hole that one of the chopper reporters was passing along information to us earlier that could be, in theory, used for a gas canister to be fired in there. But we haven't seen any indication yet that that's going to happen, but if it does happen, you will see it. It'll be very visual. And what will happen oftentimes in that situation is the driver will then leave the vehicle upon seeing the gas get dispersed inside the cabin of that vehicle. Again, here with you live on WFLA Now, listening in to KTLA.
I think LAPD would continue with it because it's their caper.
Motion there from the car. The car just moved forward, and I don't know if that was the car in drive or the car and momentum carrying it towards the curb. But there was just movement from the car towards the curb itself. And again, that's noteworthy mostly because the driver has, at every opportunity so far throughout this pursuit, tried to elude, as hairy of a situation as we have here, tried to elude authorities by wiggling out and even going up on a curb to get out of the situation that the driver found himself in.
Yes. I see you. Huh? Yeah.
Let's go to KNBC.
Yeah, guys, and
there is a lockbox on the front door, unknown if it's an alarm or something.
17-year-old female subject is stating she wants to commit suicide. A week ago, she did make some lacerations on her wrist. No weapons right now. She's just making threats in the family vehicle that she wants to commit suicide.
yes, up high.
205-10-4, is it possible that she could flee in that vehicle?
I just want to show you KTLA shot for just a second.
With LAPD, we
Look
may
at
have
me.
some CHP down here, but you can see lots of black and whites. He's not going anywhere. If he gets out of the car, they'll find.
Lots of cruisers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Photojournalist Jim Hockwith here with me, counting 12. About a dozen vehicles, cruisers, right on top of the Honda Civic that they have been pursuing for more than an hour now across Los Angeles and Orange County, California. There you see, again, movement from the vehicle. And now, look at that, trying to get onto the curb. Even with almost completely deflated tires, you see now that 12th cruiser that Jim noted trying to cut off any and all access points to the parking lot. Would he dare, would the driver dare go over the bush? Is it even possible for a vehicle without much air in those two front tires to get over that area of shrubbery? I do not know, but the driver has looked for any and all opportunity to wiggle out of complicated situations such as this one over the course of this pursuit. Again, listening in to KTLA.
With those low profiles, that Glenn absolutely right. He may not be able to move. That's for sure.
8275th Street, lot 14, 82075 Street, lot 14. You're going to see the complaint at lot 3. There's a male in a red Cadillac racing around the area and then stopped out and cursed at the caller. Suspect is at lot 4.
Yeah.
More movement from the vehicle trying to get onto the curb.
I'm above you here, Aldo. 17.
It's 847-912-3210. Realtor Sally Marsh, to see if anyone can come out or what they want to do. Alarms going off.
Can't imagine what it's like inside that Pizza Hut right now. Looking outside of the Pizza Hut, if you're inside looking out, it's quite the scene. If you're inside that Pizza Hut right now, you're looking at a dozen or so police cruisers and a dozen or so more officers, many of them with guns drawn, pointed in the direction of their curb, where a Honda Civic with mostly deflated tires, spiked out tires, is partially pulled onto the curb to their parking lot. Again, live from, this is KTLA's chopper signal from Los Angeles, California.
I'm going to stay up here. I'm holding 17, Aldo.
What I want to show you,
I'm
folks.
17. I think I'm still above you.
Let's hit the touchscreen and go split screen.
Sounded like probably some less lethal. I don't know if we caught that from the chopper or not. It sounded to me like they might have shot some beanbags at the car, but I couldn't tell for sure.
Left side of your screen is a ground shot from our sister station KTLA in Los Angeles, and they've brought in some of their on-air anchors to this feed. We'll listen in a moment, and then the right side of your screen is still the chopper signal, but you can see the officers with guns drawn. We'll go back full screen here in a moment. Let's just listen in, split screen here for a moment.
Kind of crossfire, and if we go back, I'll back up.
I'm going to move north and then do a 180.
Show you kind of the crowd over at the Target department store here on the Cerritos side. You can see a bunch of folks just kind of coming over. There is a school in the area. I don't think it's in any reason where they would have to be worried, but there is Tetzloff Junior High, which is right about a block behind where I'm parked right now. So they do have that school nearby, but nothing super close, I think, that would affect any of the schools around here.
Interesting, you can see officers that might be a Subway employee, but somebody in the shopping plaza was getting too close for officers' liking with their camera phone pulled out. And this is what I was talking about as far as what people in that Subway, that what appears to be a tux shop, and what might be a nail salon, if I'm reading that sign correctly, and the Pizza Hut, what they all must be thinking, a dentist in this shopping center as well, in Lakewood, California. And you can now see, it looks like, yeah, that's a member of law enforcement moving that civilian back, that witness back, as to the other side of the parking lot, trying to get in there with cell phone video. For those of you just joining us, JB Buno here with you live. Hello. Saying hello to our audience wherever you're joining us from on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, WFLA's Facebook page. This is a pursuit that has quite literally come to a halt here in Lakewood, California. Crossed over through a lot of different towns onto the 5 freeway in Los Angeles. It was wild for a moment when we were seeing spiked strips getting thrown out almost every few minutes as the car was making U-turn after U-turn, trying to elude authorities. There was the wrong way component of this pursuit as well. So we're now waiting for whatever the driver may do next. What is going to be the response from the driver? We have this shot to show you, as well as now a moving shot. Let's show you this shot. This is their vehicle, their camera vehicle on the ground there's the shopping center, and now turning away. That was an interesting shot, showing the ground shot from their news live truck.
They're moving me again, so.
Now going back to the aerial signal so that we can show you what is going to happen next. The driver clearly almost completely out of options. I wouldn't try going over that bush and into the, because even if you do get into the parking lot, what is going to happen next? You've clearly run out of options here if you're the driver. No air in virtually all of your tires. You're partially onto the curb. You have a hole, a pretty large hole in your passenger side rear window. And at least 8 or 9 firearms pointed in your direction from some of Los Angeles' finest. So you're clearly running out of options here. If the driver did want to get extraordinarily bold and reckless, the driver could put it in reverse and try to back out and then try to get to the other lanes of traffic that appear to be somewhat open. And here you have it. He's in reverse. Let's listen in to KTLA.
Say that again. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Switching over to KMBC.
Get ready to move if they have to, but now.
This is actually KTLA. Let's go back to KTLA.
He's going to jail. It's all.
Oh, we don't have KTLA's audio anymore, only on this shot.
If they call the SWAT.
I copy the note, thank you.
1047.
They would evacuate everybody safely out of that southeast corner here of Delamo and Bloomfield in Lakewood.
Switching some feeds
of course,
here, everybody.
Lakewood Sheriffs and LAPD from Newton Division. LAPD initiated the pursuit and ended up here.
Beanbag guns. Them use at least one of those before to shoot out that left rear window. Like I said, when they do that, you may think, oh, well, why don't they shoot out the driver window? They're not really trying to make contact to hit the driver. They're trying to blow out one of the windows so they can see inside, and so maybe they can talk to the driver and try and convince him to just give this up. We know that both of those are on the way. It takes, if it's LA County Sheriffs, if it's LAPD, they have a little bit of a distance to travel to get here. We are very far outside of LA city limits, so if it's any LA city resources that are coming here, they're going to have to deal with traffic just like the rest of us, even though they're going to be rolling with lights and sirens down the 5 to get to this scene. But we know that both of those are en route here. In the meantime, as we've been saying, time is kind of on LAPD's side. They can wait here in this position until the Bearcat gets here, until the K9 gets here, to make more of a move on this driver and pull him out of the car or do anything like that. These officers that are on scene now don't really want to do anything like that. They are more in the mindset of controlling the scene and keeping it static for as long as they can until those more protective resources get here that can move in right up close to the driver and can use smoke bombs and things like that to hopefully be a little bit more of a incentive to get this driver to give up peacefully. Right, Colleen. So this is an LAPD pursuit. LAPD has been handling it from the beginning. They never let any other jurisdiction take control of this pursuit in this particular instance. Sometimes you see them hand things off to CHP, but for whatever instance, LAPD didn't want to give this one up. And there could be, you can read into that there's something more about this pursuit, that they wanted to bring it to an end themselves. But to answer your question, we are very far outside of the city of LA, so we are not in LAPD's jurisdiction. That's why you see these LA County Sheriff's cars working the traffic side of things. They are clearing the traffic and letting the LAPD units that are here that have been handling this pursuit focus on dealing with the suspect. And Caroline, you mentioned mutual aid. You would have, that is definitely a possibility. Those calls are being made, and if a Bearcat from a nearby department gets here first, then all the better. That's something that LAPD will probably welcome in this case. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. We saw them take that black and white that was behind the suspect, and now we see officers jumping in that car now. What I'm guessing they're going to do is try and slide up a little bit. There we go. We're seeing them try and use that car to pin the rear bumper of this vehicle in, so that he's now pinned between a vehicle and the curb, and that kind of takes out the possibility that you mentioned of this suspect throwing it in reverse and trying to get out that way. LAPD was reading your mind, or they're actually listening to us, and they jumped in that black and white very cautiously, and they were able to kind of slide this car forward to now put us back in a pinned-in situation where LAPD has this car pinned in against the curb, and hopefully that means that we are in a situation where this driver can't really back up or reverse and get out of here again. Probably about 10 minutes.
The driver now with virtually no way to get out of a very thorny situation in California. Lakewood, California is the town that they're currently in, outside of this Pizza Hut and outside of this shopping plaza, where the driver now with virtually no air left in their tires and no way to go forward, no way to go backwards, and within roughly 15 feet of officers with firearms drawn, really running out of options if you are the driver of this stolen vehicle, a vehicle that we found out a short time ago from our sister stations in Los Angeles. This is a possible carjacked vehicle that we're talking about here. There was a carjacking that occurred in Downey, California, at some point this morning, early this Friday morning, and this might be the vehicle, and this might be the driver of that carjacking in California this morning, giving everyone here just a little bit of a backstory as to what we know as to why the driver has gone to such great lengths to elude authorities without giving him or herself up. As a reminder, this is a live feed. Anything can happen at any moment. Let's show you another signal. This is from KTLA. This gives us a better shot at the hole in the rear driver's side window. We don't know where that big hole in the window originated from, whether it was a bean bag that was launched to create that gap in that window that would, in theory, give them an access point for a gas canister to be fired into the cabin of the vehicle. Or it might have come during the pit maneuver itself. There was multiple pit maneuvers attempted and that were at least partially successful in bringing us to the scenario that we have here. But the driver yet to appear. And again, we don't know how many are inside the vehicle. We believe that it's one, but is it possible that passengers or a passenger is in this vehicle? Absolutely. We just haven't been able to see too much into the vehicle due to the tinted windows of this Honda Civic. This is now our live stream now on WFLA Now. We just eclipsed 1 hour on this live stream. And when we started, they were approaching an hour with the pursuit itself. So we're now coming up on around the neighborhood of 2 hours. This has been going on for the driver and all the officers that you see here at the scene in Lakewood, California. Let's go back to KNBC.
That we're hopefully kind of coming to a moment of pause where LAPD can hopefully wait out this suspect now and wait for the SWAT and Bearcat to arrive and canine officers to also arrive and hopefully give this driver a little bit more incentive to, as we said, to give up peacefully. Yeah, and you'll see that when LAPD is kind of moving in a little bit closer to a suspect in a standout situation such as this. They all still have their guns drawn. We haven't heard any confirmation on if this suspect is armed or not, but LAPD and officers from any department really always have to act as if the suspect could be armed. And considering the behavior that we've seen from this driver so far, the past 2 hours this afternoon, we know that this driver doesn't really have a care for the safety of others. So we kind of have to act like this driver is capable of being armed or doing something else to harm another person. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing here now. As you mentioned, officers taking a defensive posture, still keeping their guns drawn, some of them with less than lethal fire. You see this officer here, as I punch in the camera, has a green strap, which indicates one of those less than lethal weapons, also at the ready here. And LAPD is going to maintain this stance, like we've been saying, until we get other resources here that would be more armored SWAT officers that would be able to either make a move on the vehicle or use flashbangs or things of that nature to get this suspect out of the car and finally bring this thing to an end. We still have a few more minutes here. Yes. 10-4. Nothing really new, as we've kind of been saying. We're in a standoff mode. We're in a waiting mode where LAPD, they have time on their side, and they can wait this suspect out for longer than this suspect can wait, because more resources will come to the scene here and relieve the officers here that have been working on this pursuit for the better part of the past 2 hours. Another thing that I want to point out is we were able to zoom the camera in on some of those passenger side tires, and I believe that they are still, at least that rear tire is still inflated. It's hard to tell with that front passenger side tire, but at least that rear tire is still inflated. But hopefully that's not even something we have to worry about here, because we know the flat tire is pinned up against the curb and the rear bumper is pinned up against that LAPD black and white. And we're just kind of in this standoff situation where LAPD can do what they can to wait this suspect out.
Folks, if you're like me, you're just committed to finding out how exactly this is going to end. Showing you now the KTLA chopper signal. We were just, photojournalist Jim Hockett and I were just looking over at flight radar, and there's 5 choppers in the air circling. Multiple, I think, with the media, and then 1 or 2 with law enforcement. Clearly, a lot of attention being paid to the stolen vehicle and possible carjacking suspect that we've been talking about here on WFLA Now, but very committed. Let's show you this shot. They just zoomed in all the way on the cabin of the vehicle. You can try to see beyond the windshield here. Let's listen in for a second.
Then appears to be kind of fidgeting around, continuing to look in the passenger seat for something. We're gonna come out wide here for now, but you know, we do see motion from this driver, and he appears to be fidgeting in the past few minutes a lot more than he has been so far. So what that means, it's really hard to tell. This has been, you know, a pursuit where it's very hard to predict what the intentions are of this driver. And now that he's fidgeting around more and more, it's very hard to tell if he's just getting agitated of being stuck here for quite a long period of time. This is going to be the longest standoff of this pursuit so far. Or if he's, you know, hopefully preparing to exit the vehicle. I kind of doubt that's the case, but it's always a little scary when you see the driver maneuvering around.
And if you do look closely at the windshield, you can see quite a bit of maneuvering going on, as the KNBC chopper reporter is sharing with us. It can be hard to see on a mobile device. If you're watching on a cell phone, it can be a little hard. But, yeah, you can clearly see a lot of motion going on back and forth. And you can see almost the waving around of an object. It almost looked like an envelope or a piece of paper. It almost looked like, for a moment, somebody who was wiping down the inside portion of the glass of the windshield. That's how much there was back and forth, like a back and forth motion going on from the driver. Hard to see exactly what the driver's doing.
I'm sorry, guys. I was working out some fuel stuff with my pilot. What was it that you're trying to see? Yeah, something bright in color. It looks like he was holding. It could be a note of some kind. He could be trying to communicate with officers that way. His hand, I can kind of see from this angle here, is still on the steering wheel, and he appears to be still kind of fidgeting there with stuff in the maybe the glove compartment, really just speculating as far as that goes. This white object, I'm just going to push in really quick and just see what this could possibly be. That just might be like one of those labels that you see on newer cars. Yeah. Yeah, so that's probably what that is. But as far as what else the suspect is kind of fidgeting with in the car, it's really hard to tell. We have a little fuel update for you guys here. We need to go and refuel in the next couple minutes here, so we'll hold the shot up for as long as we can. But we're going to go refuel, and we have News Chopper 4 Bravo on the way here, along with our crew on the ground, to make sure you guys don't miss any moment here that may happen in this standoff situation in Lakewood.
Interesting that we have noted here that this black shot right now is the KTLA feed. They just left because they had to refuel. KNBC, you just heard from their chopper reporter saying that they're running low on fuel, so their chopper is going to have to go refuel here in a couple of moments, as now a K9 has showed up here at the scene. But I want to hit a couple buttons here if I can.
Let me ask.
And we're going to show everybody the ground shot as well that we have also. So if we lose the chopper shot, we have this shot to show you as well. And there's a zoom in. That is the Honda Civic. You can see that the window is cracked open there. So if we go split screen, we'll show you the ground shot and the remnants of the aerial shot that we have before the KNBC chopper has to go and refuel.
Yep, we're clear. We're clear.
And now KNBC being given the clear from their newsroom to go ahead and refuel. You did hear about Chopper Bravo being brought in. So they, based on what we're hearing, will have another chopper in the air. As soon as we have that shot to bring you, we'll do so. In the meantime, we're staying live with the ground shot, showing you now a K9 that has arrived here at the scene with of course, the K9 unit. It'll be very interesting to see how the K9 is deployed in this standoff situation that has unfolded here in Lakewood, California. Let's see if we can listen in. Not much audio on this feed, on this ground shot. There is a reporter at the scene. Might hear some stray audio from that reporter. I'm back here in Tampa, monitoring all the live feeds that are coming into our newsroom, including the several that have come in from Los Angeles, California, as we're looking here at the stolen car suspect, really a possible carjacking suspect, now finding themselves in a standoff situation with a dozen or so officers at the scene, many of them with guns drawn and pointed at the driver's Honda Civic, or the driver's stolen Honda Civic as we understand it, based on the information that has been given to authorities in Los Angeles, California. A lot of commenters here in the Facebook Live comment section on the WFLA's Facebook page, pointing out the beauty of the K9 that we now have at the scene. And I do see some hashtag AJB comments coming in here as well. We'll stay with this feed as long as we have it, folks. I am curious to see how this situation is going to end. But as a reminder, it's important to remember that with guns drawn, this is a potentially dangerous situation, of course, and anything could happen at any moment. We have to put that disclaimer out there when we're talking about a live camera feed like this. So if you're just joining us and you're confused, as the camera now pans a little bit, okay, beyond that Ford, yeah, zoom that in the center of your screen, that cracked window, that's the Honda Civic. and that's the one that has been pursued for more than 2 hours now. We can say confidently more than 2 hours, maybe even closer to 3 hours. But it has all reached this point. They are trying to bring this situation to a close peacefully, a conclusion peacefully, without anybody getting hurt. That includes the driver of the Honda Civic. And police in Los Angeles have experience, a great deal of experience, more than you would find in most other areas of the country when it comes to vehicle pursuits and the strategy that comes with the territory of a vehicle pursuit. Talking about pit maneuvers, talking about laying out spike strips, talking about having aerial, reconnaissance. Aerial recon is a huge part of it too, and law enforcement has to track it from the air just as the media does track it from the air as well. So behind that cracked, is that window, I think that window has come down a bit more. Has it not? I feel like that crack on that window has increased, that the window has been lowered a bit. But the driver is there behind that door, and the photographer here zooming in and out, kind of giving us some perspective, showing a little bit of the scene and what it looks like from the ground. This is the closest that the news cameras can get to, again, a potentially dangerous situation. The chopper reporters for our respective sister stations, that being KNBC and KTLA, were talking earlier about some of the observations, such as the hole in the rear driver's side window that might have been blown out by a beanbag, might have blown out for a potential gas canister deployment. We also have on the very left side of your screen the green strap on the shoulder of one of Los Angeles' finest, and that denotes a non-lethal weapon. That could be in the form of a beanbag gun, a gun with rubber bullets, a gun with a gas canister or gas canister deployment device. Yeah, I see that Susan in our comment section saying, yeah, the window appears to have opened more. I agree, Susan. I thought that the window was just barely open, and then it appeared to have been lowered. And that lowering of that window could be specifically for communication purposes. You can see there that green non-lethal weapon in the hands of that one officer. It could also be a taser as well. It could be a taser device of some kind. A lot of different non-lethal weapons exist for situations like these. Again, the whole goal here is to bring this to an end peacefully without anybody getting hurt. Wherever you're watching from, JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. If you're watching, we are watching the same 4 or so inches that are open on this one Honda Civic that has been the focal point now of a standoff that originally began as a stolen vehicle pursuit. We later found out possibly connected to a carjacking in Downey, California this morning. And now here we are. Police have maneuvered the vehicles in a spot, and we don't have the aerial coverage to show you now, but they have surrounded the vehicle to a point where the vehicle can't really back up, can't go forward anymore. Of course, dealing with the deflated tires as a result of the spike strips that were thrown out, this driver has clearly run out of just about every option to escape. And even if the driver was somehow able to wiggle out of this situation, not going to get very far.
Yeah, they're yelling something, right? Like they're
Let's go full screen. You're hearing some of the reporter banter, I think.
We're just live on it right now, so we've got the chopper up, but it's just one guy we can tell.
Folks, I'm going to step away for just a moment. I'm going to see if we can recalibrate in that next aerial shot to show you from the air what we're dealing with here in Lakewood, California. JB back with you folks, and again checking to see if we can get you another chopper signal, but as I return back down, the window just came down more, did it not? Very curious to see how this unfolds now, because the window is clearly down about 50% of the way. So the choppers, and I was just getting an update, choppers refueling, and there is a rotation of choppers that could come in as well. So just trying to figure out when we're going to get a chopper signal back to show you the aerial coverage that we began this stream with. But clearly the window is about halfway down now. And now there's different entry points for potential gas canister deployment. But this is likely just, oh, there it is, coming down even more. See that? Hashtag HeyJB from Steve Jenkins in the Facebook Live comment section. Hey, Steve, hope you're having a good day. Asking, how long is this going to go on for? I'll tell you, Steve, I don't know if it's going to go on all that much longer. If the driver is getting to the point where the driver is now lowering the window, that could be just communication back and forth now. We can only hope to get the driver out of the vehicle safely. But this is a driver that has, let's just call it like it is, been extraordinarily stubborn in stolen vehicle pursuits or just vehicle pursuits of any kind that we have seen. It doesn't matter if it's in California, Florida, Ohio, New York, doesn't matter where it is. When a driver in a vehicle pursuit runs out of options, it usually comes to an end somewhat quickly. The driver will try to either escape on foot or the driver will get out and give up. Why delay the inevitable? Because we've clearly come to the point where we have the inevitable here. But this driver remaining stubborn and not getting out of the car, not giving him or herself up. You have to wonder if a negotiator has been brought in, and that's why the window has been lowered as well. If they have somebody who is trained tactically in handling this situation verbally from law enforcement to suspect. But the window is at 50% down or even more than 50% down. And yeah, and some commenters like Kathleen Curtis in our comment section saying as well, you don't want to leave this vehicle and go out on foot. You leave this vehicle and you go out on foot, you have a canine that is going to chase you down very, very quickly. So you can't escape because you're completely surrounded by law enforcement vehicles. So you can't escape in the car. You can't escape on foot because unless you haven't seen the canine yet, maybe you think you can escape on foot. Wendy in the comment section as well, #AJB, maybe wondering if a translator is at the scene. That's also, could there have been a language barrier that came into play? This is possible. California has a sizable Latino population. We don't know whether or not the suspect or the driver in this case speaks English. We don't know that they don't speak English. We just know the window has been lowered for a reason, and we're trying to get a better understanding as to what that reason is. What's interesting is that we're seeing fewer officers with guns drawn pointed in the direction of the vehicle, at least from the ground shot. There has been, I don't want to say a more relaxed attitude, but it's not as tense as it was about 20 to 25 minutes ago, which perhaps could be because they have an open channel of communication with the driver. Hey folks, just saying hello. JB, waiting for something to happen here with the suspect in this stolen vehicle pursuit, possible carjacking out of Downey, California, the Los Angeles, Orange County area, really LA, the metro area of Los Angeles. And this was a pretty wild chase. Multiple U-turns, like a lot of different U-turns, spike strips getting thrown out, getting deployed in front of the vehicle that we caught on camera from the aerial coverage that we had earlier. We went live right after this originally got on our radar because we had heard about a car going in the wrong direction on the 5 freeway. And the 5 freeway is dangerous enough when cars are all going in the right direction. You have a car going in the wrong direction, it's immediately, of course, it immediately is something that gets put on our radar even here for us in Florida. So when we heard that there was a car on the 5 freeway going in the wrong direction, immediately we tried to get live. And by the time we started the live stream, the vehicle was off the 5 freeway, trying to make all these turns. Basically, and every time that it appeared that police had finally cornered the suspect, somehow the suspect was able to wiggle out and get away, going up onto curbs or going over medians. In this case, now with what this has culminated to, the choppers were hovering for as long as they could overhead. Both the choppers for both of our sister stations, that's our NBC sister station, KNBC, had to go refuel. Our next sister station, KTLA, had to go leave and refuel. So both the choppers probably got launched around the same time, had to go refuel at the same time. And now we're stuck with this, with the ground shot. We hope to have more chopper coverage, aerial coverage here for you soon. But this is, at least we have this vantage point. It's better than nothing. We can see, and really from the air, it would have been hard to see if we were positioned on the other side of the vehicle. It would have been hard to have seen the window getting lowered. So this gives us a great vantage point to the window being lowered, and we can only hope that there's some communication going on. You can hear some reporter banter in the background here, and they might be preparing for a live report on their evening newscast in Los Angeles, California. Wherever you're watching from, hope you're having a great Friday evening. JB again here with you in Tampa, Florida, and here live with the NWFLA now for this stolen car suspect, now in a standoff situation after that pursuit on the 5 freeway and subsequent side streets of Los Angeles and Orange counties. You can interact with me in the Facebook Live comment section using hashtag HeyJB if you're trying to get my attention. If you want to make a point, if you have a question, you can do so with hashtag HeyJB. And it looks like a chopper is getting closer to returning to the scene. Might have that here for you shortly. I believe we have another ground shot to show you, too. Second ground shot just came in. It's from NBC. Let's check it out. So a different vantage point. And now you can see spectators. Look at that. People with their phones out. Oh, and the cars. Is that the car moving? Is the car moving? Let's go split screen and show you both feeds. Well, we can't see on the split screen, the dual box here, we can't see the vehicle. The car is most certainly moving. And the window is now back up. So if there was any conversation, any communication going on, it perhaps didn't go well, and now you can see officers now moving in. Oh, okay, the door's open. The door's open. Oh, and now closed again. The door did fling open there for a moment. And you can see that one cruiser in the foreground was moving closer up. The door is open again.
Yes.
And there's the suspect peeking his head out. As a reminder, disclaimer for our audience, is a live feed.
Yeah, it looked like, yeah, I do. Where something, it looks like, I don't know if those are less lethal. Sounds like something. Oh, the dog, looks like the dog. Yeah, it looks like the dog is on his, is on him. The dog, just before that, we saw the dog move in from the right behind one of those patrol cars. We hear some things.
And now the driver getting back into the vehicle.
A better idea on the sound, but it didn't sound like a gunshot. It sounded like, not as loud. And he went back, and there he goes.
The driver is now trying to progress forward and trying to get over that bush we were talking about earlier. You could hear the reporter talking about whether or not it was hard to see because of all of the cover of vehicles that we had in front of us. But the driver is now maneuvering and just made several turns and is trying to wiggle his way out of the situation again. Let's go split screen and show you the two camera feeds we have side by side. You can see that some officers are trying to get back into their vehicles now. And there's, okay, so on the left, there's the Honda. And now, okay, unfortunately now going behind this building, and we're about to lose complete sight of that vehicle. And the vehicle trying to drive off again. It appeared, and the reporter there at the scene, you could hear some of the stray audio come in, trying to communicate to us that there was a dog And that's why he was flailing about. But the suspect was out. As now we have skateboarders and pedestrians and people walking their dogs go on by. Just another day in Los Angeles, California. Unfortunately, folks, this is the one camera feed that we now have. I'm going to step away for 90 seconds. And hopefully, if the chopper is back in the air, we'll be able to follow yet another chapter of this pursuit on the roads of Lakewood, California. Shockingly back mobile here, with vehicles. I'm in shock and in disbelief, but here we are yet again. Stand by. You can see that pedestrians are following the activity down the street, as are news crews. A chopper is in the air with KTLA. We are awaiting that chopper signal being available. Okay, we have to have it back from KNBC. Just in. And now, wow, look at what's happened here. So now the vehicle is completely surrounded. And the K9 not too far away. So the driver did get out. It was flailing about, clearly in distress, got back in the car, started driving, and went down the street, and we're now in yet another location. As the camera appears to be glitching a bit. This is actually not the chopper feed we were expecting. Oh, the camera is really glitching. This is not the camera feed that we were expecting. I think both of the choppers that we had previously landed to refueled, and then got back up in the air at around the same. And yes, it is. So now we're going to go back to, we have both choppers now back in the air. And I can show it to you here. This is the one from, this is KNBC. And actually, the KTLA, this is a better vantage point. But we can switch back and forth now between camera shots. I want to show you another interesting shot here. If I can. The live truck for KTLA has a camera on it, and they were just about to try to drive down the street. I'm going to see if I can bring in that camera shot in a moment, because they might be driving by on the other side of the road here. But again, what you're looking at here, folks, that on the bottom of your screen is the Honda Civic and the driver that will not give himself up. Now you can see, look at that. The pit maneuver resulted in the bumper being dislodged from the rear of the vehicle and is now curbside. No air left in any of these tires at this point. Hole in the driver's side window, rear driver's side window. Los Angeles officers, guns drawn at you, and you can't, you know, what's interesting is that I said you can't get out of the previous situation, and then the driver was able to somehow squeak out. But this one is, it looks even, he's even more cornered in now than he was about 15 minutes ago. I'd like to caution our audience here for just a moment. With a driver that clearly is refusing to give himself up, you just don't know what is going to happen with somebody that is refusing to cooperate with police. There is clearly a lack of cooperation here with law enforcement. Clearly, we have somebody that has been trying to elude authorities for the better part of this evening / well, I guess it's afternoon over on the West Coast. But with this being as unpredictable of a situation that it is, it's my responsibility to tell you, wherever you're watching from, that we don't know what's going to happen with this live feed. Anything could happen at any moment, as we do with live streaming. Live streaming can get complicated because when we have ongoing police situations like the one that you have here on the right side of your screen, we have to caution our audience that that anything can happen at any moment, especially when you have the unpredictability factor being this high with this kind of a situation. Back here live full screen. It appears the door is again open. See if we can listen in to, this is now, I'll make sure I have my feeds right. This is KNBC.
Try to make his way out of the car. And there they are.
Driver now out of the vehicle.
Yeah, so there's his hands behind his head. That is perfect. That is exactly what these officers want to see. But this guy has led them on such a wild chase. They still can't trust him. They still have to make sure that he is in handcuffs before they can let their guard down. What they're going to ask him to do here is to walk back in their direction. They may ask him to raise his sweatshirt so that they can see his waistband, make sure that there's nothing on him that could possibly harm them. And when they feel comfortable, they're going to put the handcuffs on him. And eventually, they're going to clear that vehicle to make sure that nobody else is inside.
This is the chopper reporter for KTLA. The suspect now down on both knees, hands behind his back now, and hands behind the head. And the suspect now being handcuffed after a lengthy pursuit. Unpredictable as any, with a lot of twists and turns. The canine you can see right there as well. And the suspect officially being taken into custody. And it would appear now the officers have to go in and check to ensure that there's no one else in the vehicle, as you're seeing here. Officers looking into the vehicle. It does not. They would, of course, signal if there was anybody else in the car. And let's go back now to the other shot that we have. I think we have KTLA. KTLA has a shot of the suspect in handcuffs. Let's go split screen for the two choppers. On the right side of your screen, KNBC. Left side of your screen, KTLA. You can see now on the shot from KNBC, they've popped the trunk. They've opened up the doors to the rear section of the cabin, looking for anything else of note. And the situation under control now. It wasn't under control a couple hours ago or even 20 minutes ago. or at least not as under control as what we have right now, with the suspect in handcuffs and being taken into custody. JB here with you live, everybody on WFLA Now. Suspect in handcuffs, no one else in the vehicle itself. We're going to stay here with you live, but grateful that we saw the fine work of Los Angeles' finest. This is textbook, as they would say, as far as handling a situation when it comes to a fleeing suspect. Again, for those of you who maybe missed an earlier portion of the stream where we were talking about this, a stolen vehicle suspect and a possible carjacking that occurred in Downey, California. With all of the unpredictability here, there were so many ways for this to go wrong, but law enforcement, through their training, of course, seeing to it that this ended peacefully and without any further incident. So grateful to see this unfolding here without any additional fireworks. I think we had plenty of fireworks earlier on in the pursuit. So nice to see that this. Oh, and very interesting. Look here, we have on the passenger side of the vehicle, we have additional holes there in the two windows, the rear passenger and the rear front windows. Both have similar holes in them. Very interesting to note here. And then let's tap. We'll go full screen. And you can see, does the driver require any medical attention of any kind? Someone noting that they've been removing someone, I think it was Lauren in the comment section with hashtag HJB, noting that that there might be some items have been removed from the pocket. Don't know what it could be. Some commenters like Lauren and some others here might be